Hello, faithful, and welcome to the 49ers Plus podcast. I'm Al Moriello, and if you're looking for objective, intelligent, common sense 49ers analysis, you have come to the right place. And we are highlighting that in this week's episode as we discuss why the national media is generally trash when it comes to the 49ers and predictions and sources as it relates to Brandon Aiyuk's ongoing trade chatter or lack thereof, or who knows, again, morons out there. Brock Purdy's contract the opinion seems to change by the day, which is getting ridiculous. And a special shout out to a Twitter twat out there who brought up Philadelphia Eagle defensive end Bryce Huff and why the 49ers should trade for him, something that I shot down swiftly and immediately with logic and facts. And I don't think that person like that, but nor do I care, because I am a slayer of bad takes. We're going to be discussing quickly 2025 NFC win projections. The Niners close to the top. People are shocked. I am not. And then I'm diving into the roster as it stands today. We are roughly a month away from the draft, and I will give you a prediction, which is subject to change based on anything else that happens in free agency, of how many rookies I see making the 53-man roster, or the 90-man roster, let's say, but the 53-man roster ultimately. So let's get right into it, and let's start with the national media. Now, listen, there are a lot of good reporters out there in the national media that are not hot take merchants. They are not out there to make a name for themselves, throwing up as much crap against the wall and seeing what sticks. And there are good local 49er reporters like a Matt Barrows, like a Matt Mayoko, who might be the best and most even-keeled 49er beat reporter that there is. He doesn't post editorials. There's nothing nonsensical. He's giving you the status of where things stand with players in the organization, and he'll sometimes give his opinion. But I think the issue when it comes to a lot of national media folks, or obviously Joe and Jane Schmo on Twitter, in their parents' basement or in their room, in their attic, filming from their car, that generally their sources are, trust me, bro. I got a source, bro. Yo, trust me, bro. But even for national media members, we have to remember that unless they're talking to someone within the organization, in this case, the 49ers, their sources are usually another GM, another pro personnel player for another team, maybe a national scout, maybe another media member. And they are reporting on somebody's opinion. And once that hits social media, that turns from an opinion to a source or a rumor or a grumbling or something that actually might be in the works when it's really not. When it really started out as an opinion by a nobody, just like me, guys, I'm a nobody. I'm giving you my opinions. But if you've been a follower of the podcast for the past several weeks, months, or year plus, thank you so much for taking the journey with us. And if you are new to the podcast, welcome. I hope we keep you for the majority of today's podcast and into the near future. They're my opinions as well, but my batting average is pretty darn good. And that is not a pat myself on the back situation. It's just a statement of fact. Have I gotten everything right that I thought? Absolutely not. And I think my biggest miss was thinking that Robert Saleh would not come back as the defensive coordinator. And my stance was, it feels like he will be running back under Kyle Shanahan's wing. Wouldn't he want to spread his wings more as a DC elsewhere? Obviously, there was a time where we were all waiting on if Saleh was going to accept a position with either the Las Vegas Raiders or Jacksonville Jaguars. That didn't happen. And he came back, and I was on record saying, listen, maybe Shanahan needs to find his Steve Spagnuolo type of DC, meaning a defensive coordinator who is not a flight risk. Robert Saleh is one, and he could leave after one season. If the Niners win the Super Bowl, then it was all worth it. But he could leave after this upcoming season to throw his hat in the ring in the head coaching cycle in 2026. And I thought someone like maybe a Dennis Allen, who's the DC, I think, in Chicago now, would have been that Steve Spagnuolo failed head coach multiple times, or at least in Dennis Allen's case with the Raiders and with the Saints, and that he would settle into being a DC for the next several years. And he's a good DC at that. But beyond that, in terms of free agent losses, free agents the Niners retain, positions that I thought the Niners would attack in free agency, trades that did happen, Debo, that didn't happen, Aiyuk, where Brock is probably going to land in terms of his contract. We're going to be talking about that. I will honestly take my batting average and my point of view over anybody else that I'm seeing out there in social media or on TV or radio. And I know that might sound haughty or arrogant, but I think everybody who has a strong opinion and has knowledge of a team and devotes as much time to reading about the team and listening to podcasts and doing research and following stuff along on social as we do should feel confident in their takes. We really should. And I think where this kind of circles back to is, let's start with Brandon Aiyuk, the trade nonsense that I've talked about on previous podcasts, right? The Patriots and the Browns were named as potential suitors. Steelers last year, obviously they traded for DK Metcalf. He's not going to be going there. Brandon Aiyuk said no, if we're going to believe the reports that we heard. Hopefully it wasn't a trust me bro source. It was actually somebody closer to Brandon. Maybe it was his agent that leaked something, or someone in San Francisco, or someone who actually was connected to someone with each organization that knew. And for the vast majority of the time, that's not the case. Brandon did not want to go to New England or Cleveland. Patriots earlier this week signed Stefon Diggs off of reconstructive knee injury as well, just the ACL, whereas Brandon is the ACL and MCL. Diggs put out something on social media earlier in the week of him running, routes, square ins, and he had a quarterback throwing him passes. Looked pretty good for, the 5 months post-surgery that he's at, which is essentially what Aiyuk's at as well. Stefon Diggs tore his ACL, his knee up, a couple weeks after Brandon Aiyuk. Now, granted, Aiyuk was 2 tendons, so that's probably a decent barometer for where Aiyuk is in terms of his rehabilitation. He's not posting anything to social. Posted a lot when he wanted to bitch about his contract, but you would think he would want to post some sort of update to get fans excited. He doesn't have to show the organization anything. The organization is kept apprised by the medical staff and his PT and all that good stuff. But for someone who seemed to like the limelight when it suits him, I think showing, the recovery, everybody likes a comeback story. Surprised that that's not happening for a lot of these diva receivers who like the spotlight. But, the Diggs signing made sense for the Patriots. Why give up a pick for an injured receiver when you can get a non-injured receiver, or get an injured receiver without giving up a pick or two? Now, Diggs is a couple years older, I think 3 or 4 years older than Brandon Aiyuk, so that played into it. He did get $23 million a year, I think $36-ish million guaranteed. Don't quote me on that. So less than Aiyuk. But for Drake May and that offense, which is bereft of talent, it's a good pick. Where the national media comes into play, 2 days before Stefon Diggs signed with the Patriots, Albert Breer of NFL Network was on record saying that Stefon Diggs would be a good fit in San Francisco. How or why, with Aiyuk still on the roster, would he have been a good fit in San Francisco? Why, even if the 49ers, before Albert Breer stated this, even if they had traded Aiyuk before Breer's proclamation, it still wouldn't have been a good fit, because now you have an older receiver coming off of knee surgery, getting a relatively hefty contract and more cash for the Yorks to shell out if they had just shipped Brandon Aiyuk out to save money. Doesn't make sense in a lot of different logical ways when you look at it. And again, maybe it's just, someone asked Breer the question and he thought, oh, here's a receiver that can make, be fit. And I know they can't dive into every team as much as us fans dive into our specific team. But at face value, from 30,000 feet, hell, from Mars, it didn't make sense. Now, what does make sense in a way is this April 1st date that's floating out there, where Brandon Aiyuk is due a $23 million option bonus paid that day. So $23 million in his pocket from Jed York's coffers or money bin or whatever will be handed to Brandon Aiyuk on April 1st if he's on the team. Now, websites like 49ers Web Zone and Twitter, it's going to be insufferable that day because even if he's not traded, there's going to be so many April Fools posts and fake articles and source, trust me, bro, things that are going to say he was traded, even if he wasn't. The fact that the option is due on April 1st, so aggravating. But on top of that, April 1st also guarantees his bonus of $25 million for next year. That, to be clear, that is not payable April 1st, 2025. That just guarantees that amount of money for next year, whether he gets it in the off season, whether there's actually a payable date, or it gets divided up into 18 weeks for his contract. It is not another $25 million that Jed York would have to shell out on April 1st of this year. I want to be clear about that. So it's not a double whammy. And this is not anything new in terms of how contracts work, how certain dates in one calendar year trigger a guarantee for the next calendar year. Standard operating procedure. But when people keep throwing around these dates and these big numbers, $23+ million without context, it fuels the stupidity flames of, oh, Brandon Aiyuk should get traded. He's been a malcontent. He's a baby. He's got a piss poor attitude. Let's get rid of him. When has Aiyuk had a bad attitude other than wanting to get his contract? Did he have a bad attitude his rookie year? Year 2, year 3, year 4 during the Super Bowl run? Did he ever have a bad attitude? And I'm seeing a lot of this on social media, which again is a haven of the stupid and a haven of just wanting to stir things up. Aiyuk never had a bad attitude up until he went into the Diva Receiva playbook of how to get your money. Delete your team from social media, start, posting videos of yourself with Jaden Daniels, your college rookie friend quarterback. Start making waves. Debo did the same thing. He has not been a malcontent other than that. He has not, guys. And getting back to the trade scenario on April 1st, I've been on record. Again, like anything is possible. I've said it before. Sydney Sweeney could look at me one day and throw herself at me. Anything is possible, although we highly, highly doubt that. I certainly have a face for radio or an audio-only podcast, so I'm not going to completely close the door on a trade, but the Niners have saved a lot of money for the Yorks already, cutting Javon Hargrave, cutting Leonard Floyd, cutting Malik Collins, trading Deebo Samuel. Those moves by itself saved the Yorks around $40 million in cash for 2025. Now they can save another $23 million in cash by trading him before April 1st, but he's damaged goods and you're going to be trading him for about 40 cents on the dollar. They were looking for a first round pick last year. People balked at that, although that's what a number one receiver should garner in a trade. Now, rumored, again, trust me, bro, source, I'm in my basement. My mom's giving me some macaroni for dinner, that they're looking for a second round pick. And I don't think anyone's going to give that. Like, no one was going to give it for Jordan Mason. And it doesn't make sense because this is a retool. It's a renovation. It's a reload. It's not a rebuild. Again, the Niners are not a better team in 2025 without Brandon Aiyuk, even though he's going to miss the first 4 to 6 weeks starting on the PUP list. They're not a better team in 2026, assuming he doesn't have another injury, without Brandon Aiyuk. And it doesn't matter that they have Pearsall or Jennings, who is on the last year of his contract, or brought DeMarcus Robinson in on a 2-year deal, or has Jacob Cowing, even though he's buried on the depth chart, brought in Isaiah Hodgins and Russell Gage. And I'm sure there will be, an undrafted rookie free agent or a receiver drafted in maybe the, 4th, 5th, or 7th rounds. He's not going anywhere, but there is an out in his contract, and it's after the 2026 season, where his next 2 years in 2027 and 2028, his base salaries are cuttable, do not owe him anything salaries, are $27 and $29 million respectively, with only a $15 million total dead cap hit across those 2 years. They can get out of the contract relatively painlessly, averaging only a $7.5 million cap hit per year while saving $56 million in cash if they decide to cut him after the 2026 season. I really do not think it's happening. Do not think it's happening before April 1st. And it sure as hell isn't happening after April 1st. It's not going to be a watch draft day to trade Brandon Aiyuk. Why? Because if the Yorks shell out $23 million on April 1st, they're not going to give him away later on in the offseason when they just gave him $23 million. They could go through this whole situation next offseason, whatever the date is that the $25 million would actually be handed from the Yorks to Brandon Aiyuk. Yeah, sure. I suppose then they can consider trading Aiyuk, and I'm sure the fans are going to be all for it because he will not look as good in 2025 as he did in 2023 or as he will in 2026. That's the nature of major reconstructive knee injuries. But if he's not gone by April 1st, he is on the roster for the 2025 season. That is what I would bet a significant amount of money on. Now let's move to Brock and his contract. The ongoing drama, again, other quarterbacks just get extended. Josh Allen with his new extension just happened. No rumbling about it, no talking about it, no debating about it. Just happened. Just like Jordan Love, Sam Darnold, Russell Wilson getting up to $21 million from the Giants. I don't know what the Giants are doing, him and Jameis Winston. Tua, Trevor Lawrence, Goff. These extensions just happen. A lot of chatter with Brock's, though. But this started with there being a source, trust me, bro, saying that the Niners offered him $45 million a year. Diana Rossini, a week or so after that, saying that that was false. Take each with a grain of salt. And then you have, football fans or 49er fans saying that Brock is worth, I'd only pay him $30 to $35 million. Less than what Daniel Jones made with the New York Giants. And most recently, National Sports Talk Radio thinks and stated that the Pittsburgh Steelers should trade for Brock Purdy. And they mentioned multiple first-round picks, up to 3. I think it was 3. 3 first-round picks for Brock Purdy, plus give him his around $55 million a year that he wants, because he would, and I quote their language, solve their QB issues for the next 10 years. Okay. I thought that Brock Purdy, or I was told that Brock Purdy is only good because he's in San Francisco with their weapons and the Avengers and Kyle Shanahan making things very easy for a quarterback. And he will be going to Pittsburgh, where Mike Tomlin is a very good head coach, not offensive minded. Arthur Smith is their offensive coordinator. Couldn't hold Kyle Shanahan's jockstrap. They do have George Pickens and DK Metcalf at receiver. The only question there is who is going to get thrown out of an NFL game first for being a big bitch. Pat Freiermuth is no George Kittle. Jalen Warren is no Christian McCaffrey. The offensive lines are comparable. I think Salah will get the defense playing to a comparable level of what the Steelers are playing at. And the Steelers are playing in the AFC North, a much tougher division than where the Niners are. But Sports Talk Radio thought that Brock Purdy would be the solve for Pittsburgh. Oh, and by the way, a cold weather city where we all know, in quotes, that Brock can't play in inclement weather. So these people will be okay with the Steelers trading away multiple first-round picks and giving him $55+ million a year. But they're not okay with the Niners doing it? How does that make any sense, guys? He should actually command more money from Pittsburgh or any place that's not San Francisco if we're going to believe the whole narrative of Brock needs Shanahan, Brock needs McCaffrey, Brock needs the Avengers to succeed. There's no Avengers on any other team. Well, The Eagles have their version of the Avengers, right? Two good receivers. They have Saquon. I don't know if Garrett Selleck, whatever Selleck's going to be there still as the tight end. Very good defense. He's obviously not going there. And that team does make Jalen Hurts look better than he is. His rushing stats from like 3 yards in the end zone and touchdowns makes him look like a better fantasy football player than he is, whether he was an NFL or a Super Bowl MVP or not. Now we have, multiple people reporting. I think Mike Garafolo was one. Like, don't be surprised if Brock is asking for, around $60 million that Dak Prescott got. No shit. I've been saying this for 4+ months. Once Dak reset the market and has accomplished next to nothing in his career, if I'm Brock and I've been to an NFC championship game and lost basically due to my elbow exploding, and got to the Super Bowl the following year, the year coming off of major elbow surgery when people thought I was going to be shit, 2 comeback wins in the playoffs, in the rain, left the Super Bowl in the 4th quarter in overtime with a lead, could have easily been Super Bowl MVP if the Niners defense got a stop either in the 4th quarter or overtime. I would be foolish to not ask for what Dak Prescott got. It would be professional malpractice if I was Brock's agent and I didn't ask for what Dak Prescott got. Now, just because the Cowboys gave a stupid contract to Dak Prescott doesn't mean you have to follow suit and acquiesce if you're the Niners and give that stupid contract again. And I don't think they will. And the national media is now backing up. It's going to settle somewhere around, $55 million. No shit. I've been saying this for 4 or 5 months. Once we knew what Jordan Love got and Jared Goff and Trevor Lawrence and Tua Tagovailoa and even Jalen Hurts, you could say Jalen Hurts, $51 million. He's NFL MVP now. That's all good, but that contract is a couple years old. There is something called inflation in the world. We all know about it. And the salary cap increasing every year, which is why every positional top end of the salary structure or salary list increases every year. Jamar Chase getting $40.1 million a year as a receiver, blowing the receiver salary structure out of the water. Brock is going to be in the 50s, in the mid 50s. And then, then the naysayers like, well, Josh Allen got $55 million a year. He's better than Brock. How can you pay Brock Purdy $55 million a year? Well, maybe he averages $55 million a year and he doesn't get $250 million guaranteed like the Bills got, because that's obviously what matters. National media, thank you so much for catching up to me at least a season late. And I'm sure to a lot of you smart folks that are watching, once the data points were there for Brock's peers, and Brock's peers that he has, a lot of Brock's peers, he's accomplished more than Jordan Love, Tua, Trevor Lawrence. One peer that he's accomplished the same amount as Jared Goff, been to 2 championship games and 1 Super Bowl. And one peer who's making a little bit less at $51 million, Jalen Hurts, who's been to 2 Super Bowls, won 1 and is a Super Bowl MVP, $51 million. And that contract is a couple years old. So not so that contract's a couple years old. There are a lot of data points out there. There is no way on God's green earth, if I am Brock or Brock's agent, that Brock steps foot on the field without a contract. And I don't think the Niners would want to risk that too. He is one of the faces of their franchise. He is. And they want, and no matter, even if Lynch said, oh, well, there's no guarantee that they can work something out. And I believe that if his agent is so steadfast and set on, my client's got to make more than Dak Prescott. He's got to make 61 million, 62 million. He's better than Dak. We are not accepting anything less. Then maybe he's got to play it out, because that's not the way you negotiate. He's going to end up in the mid 50s. We're all going to move on. There's going to be sticker shock when it happens. And then as the years pass, next year, the year after that, when people like CJ Stroud, Jalen Daniels, Caleb Williams, and other quarterbacks maybe re-up their contracts, it'll look like a bargain. Remember, once upon a time, Jimmy Garoppolo was the highest paid player ever in the history of sports, whether that was right or wrong or not, based on 5 games that he played. Brock has played 2.5 seasons, essentially being in the top 7 or 8 of every statistical category since he's come into the league. Brock deserves to get paid, and Brock deserves to average in the mid-50s. End of story, although I'm sure I'll bring this up in other podcasts. Now, Bryce Huff, this one was new, and I have to give out, I'm not going to say who, but I'm going to, we are reviving the Twitter twat section because this came from a Twitter twat. An ex-twat doesn't sound as good because that almost sounds like the person was a former twat and he's no longer a twat. So I like the alliteration of Twitter twat, so let's go with that. In relation to Bryce Huff, Philadelphia Eagles defensive end, posted by someone who probably thinks he's more respected than he is, who's more well-versed in certain things than he is. And had, a decent back and forth where I totally disagreed with this scenario and I laid out reasons why. And I essentially told him, listen, I respect the grind that content creators have. I don't post anything on X, like proactive posts, other than promoting or saying, hey, the new podcast episode's out. Here's what we're talking about. But I'm just not posting like random thoughts on my own, because then I feel like it's like, this is, hey, my diary, my online diary. Here's what I'm thinking. But I will respond to people. I'll post replies of some things that are good or interesting, or I didn't think about that. And of course, the rampant stupidity that's out there, and this fell under rampant stupidity. And this person said that the Niners should trade a 3rd-round pick for Bryce Huff because they can afford him cap-wise. So my response was, sure, they can afford him cap-wise. They have close to $40 million in cap space, but the cap is not the issue, dude. It's cash. And you are someone that covers the Niners and whatever team exclusively. Either you didn't do the research or you didn't care, because you just are engagement farming, which is an issue with so many content creators. And I sympathize, because if your job is to put out dozens of posts a day, I don't even know what the number is, whether it's video, just text, images, whatever. And this is my response back. They're not all going to be gold, right? And chances are half or more are going to be shit or pointless or ridiculous, just to get engagement, just to keep the algorithm feeding you people and keeping you above a certain threshold that you get paid by Twitter or YouTube, whatever it may be. All right. We all get the Niners need a pass rusher. I get it. But what this Twitter twat didn't realize or didn't want to do the research for, Bryce Huff is a player who is owed $17 million in cash, both in 2025 and 2026. So if they just cut Leonard Floyd, granted an older player, but they just cut Leonard Floyd to save half of that amount, about $8 million, then they're going to go and turn around and trade for Bryce Huff so they can dole out $17 million in cash, twice what they got back from Leonard Floyd. It doesn't make any fucking sense. Oh, but they could fit him in the salary cap. No shit. They could fit a lot of players out there that are still available in the salary cap. The Niners are not spending significant cash. They did already on Demo. They brought in some free agents, and Brock is going to be the big one. They have a certain amount that they're comfortable spending. Whether you, I, anybody else out there like it or not, they probably have a cash threshold for this year. And I just don't agree that bringing Bryce Huff in would really have made sense. This is a player who had 2.5 sacks for the Eagles in 12 games last season. He started with the Jets his first 4 years. He's averaged 4 sacks a year over his 5 years. Is that worth $17 million to? Not to say that he wouldn't maybe have more under Chris Kosoric and Robert Saleh playing opposite Nick Bosa, but you just let go of Leonard Floyd, who had 8.5 sacks last year, to save about $8 million. Let's bring in a 4 sack per player for $17 million in cash, regardless of what the cap hit is, which is much lower than that. Stupid. And one of the responses back from this Twitter twat was, well, this was a talking point on ESPN, so I thought it would be it was worth bringing up and putting it out there. Because it was brought up on ESPN, when they're not having, debate format shit, you just have talking heads that are out there giving you 30,000 foot view. I didn't really put any thought or research into this, but let's just talk about it because we have to talk about something about the Niners, like how bad they are and how bad they're going to be. We're going to get into that in a second. And they might, as Ryan Clark saying, well, they're rebuilding. They might as well trade Christian McCaffrey, and Sports Talk Radio saying, well, the Niners can't get a deal done with Brock Purdy. They should trade him. Even though we've bashed Brock Purdy quite a bit, he would solve the Steelers' issues at quarterback for the next 5 years, but he's not good enough for San Francisco. It boggles the mind. And what I pride myself here is, and I'll get heated about some stuff and be very direct in terms of some of the things I'm saying or thinking, but it's not about hot takes. I'm not about saying something stupid just for engagement. And believe me, by my numbers, we can all tell that, but that's okay. I enjoy doing this for fun. It's a fun forum. Anybody that's listening or has commented or participated in any way, I'm so grateful. The fact that anybody is listening, I'm so grateful for. But don't use ESPN or NFL or radio or anything to me as a barometer, and even local, the highly respected guys, because a lot of it is just their opinion. But when you get to the national level, they don't have the microscope on certain teams outside of the Cowboys and the Lakers and the Yankees that we do as fans of the San Francisco 49ers or whatever team that you like. It doesn't even make for an interesting discussion as soon as you understand Bryce Young's productivity and his contract, that there was no way the Niners were going to trade for him. Do the Niners need to bring in maybe another veteran DN? Yes, we'll see what they do in the draft. All eyes are on the draft now, right? We're 4 weeks away, basically. Once they fill whatever roster holes, we're going to get there momentarily, then there's still free agents out there. Free agency doesn't end. Free agency only ends between essentially the Super Bowl and beginning of March. Or maybe, I guess, sometimes in the playoffs. Unless you're a playoff team, you really can't pick people up. I may have gotten that wrong. I apologize. But free agency is basically open 10 months, 9 to 10 months of the year. And there'll still be players in May, in June, in July, during training camp. They can make trades if they want to, or after final cuts in September, that they can bring in more bodies. I know the D-line is a worry for a lot of people. But Bryce Huff, no thanks. Now let's quickly talk about win totals. This was brought up, I believe it was ESPN Bet. Let's just talk NFC, the top 5 teams. And I don't know if it's taking people aback a bit, or they're not sure what ESPN is thinking, or they just don't want to realize what's in front of them. But in terms of the NFC, the win projections per Vegas or ESPN Bet, the Eagles lead the way with 11.5 wins. That's your over-under. The next 4 teams tied at 10.5. The Lions, the Commanders, the Rams, and the 49ers. Said it last week. The demise of the 49ers is greatly exaggerated, especially when it's coming from people that are not as close to the team, to the roster, to understanding what the Niners are trying to accomplish, or how much the players that left did or did not contribute, or how much the Niners have an in-house replacement, a Renardo Green for Charvarius Ward, a Malik Mustafa for Talanoa Hufanga, a D Winters, or somebody. They'll get somebody to replace Dre Greenlaw. The exits on the D-line. The D-line was bad last year. You're not going to run it back. And there's no guarantee who they bring in is going to be any better, but you certainly don't want to run it back. O-line losing Aaron Banks. Give me Ben Barch. I'm fine with that any day. I'm sure they're going to draft at least 2 players, or probably 2 players on the O-line. Debo, not worried about his less than 700 yards receiving. Jordan Mason, McCaffrey, and Guerendo is totally fine. If it's Taylor or Israel Bonaconda or a late round draft pick or rookie undrafted free agent, I'm totally cool. The demise is greatly exaggerated, and 10.5 feels about right. When you see who they're playing, they are playing the NFC South and the AFC South. Tell me a world beater team in there. The best team is the Texans, and they're not that great. In the NFC, it's the Falcons, the Saints, the Panthers, the Bucks. A whole lot of The Texans, the Jaguars, the Colts, and the Titans. Not saying that they're going to sweep those 8 games. I mean, they have a really good chance of doing it. But if this team stays healthy-ish, they are a 10 or 11 win team. And if things go their way, they could be a 12 or 13 win team. I know to some people that's going to sound crazy. Look at the schedule. Look at the schedule and tell me, point out what are the guaranteed losses? Because I've gone into every season the past 2, if not 3 years, going through the schedule with here are the games that I think are more basically going to be wins. Here are the games that are going to be basically losses. Here are the toss-ups. And the toss-ups, you could figure maybe they win half of those. There might be 3 toss-up games and everything else is a potential win. Let me be conservative. 6 toss-up games and 11 potential wins. There's no game out there where you look at it and go, Niners have no chance. No game on the schedule. Maybe it sounds like I'm a homer, but I'm not an optimist. Take a look at the schedule, guys. It's out. We don't know, who they're playing, what weeks of the season, but very, very favorable. So now let's transition to the last part of the podcast. I want to take a look at the roster and explain to you why, if you're seeing out there the Niners trading down and gaining more than their 11 picks, it's a bad and illogical strategy. I think they're going to make 8 or 9 picks when it's all said and done. They will trade up at some point. They always seem to. I don't think it's going to be in the first round. They have a better chance of trading down. And if they trade down, I would love to garner more picks in 2026, not necessarily 2025, since they have so many. Keep the cupboard stocked for next year. But let's look at the roster. Quarterback, Brock, Mac Jones, and Tanner Mordecai. They've carried 3 QBs the last 2 seasons. I see they carry all 3 QBs. I don't think they spend a draft pick there. If at worst, Brock and Mac Jones are on the 53 and Tanner Mordecai is on the practice squad. But based on previous history, seems like they're going to go with 3 quarterbacks. Draft pick, not used. Running back, McCaffrey, Guerendo, Patrick Taylor, and Israel Abanikanda. They're going to have 3 running backs on the 53-man roster. Why? Because I think they'll have 1 or 2 on the practice squad. McCaffrey and Guerendo are the locks to make the roster. They re-signed Taylor to a 1-year deal, and Abanikanda, I think, was either a 1-year deal or a future contract. If they went into the season with any one of these, with McCaffrey, Guerendo, and Taylor or Abanikanda, I would be fine. Because we know McCaffrey. We know that Kyle Shanahan and Bobby Turner and that offense can make running backs look good, which is why Mason leaving, I'm okay with. Guerendo showed enough last year. They spent a 3rd or 4th round pick on him. And Taylor's if he's your 3rd running back, he plays special teams. I don't think they're going to I wouldn't be shocked if they spend a draft pick on a running back. No earlier than the 5th round. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th round, and they have 2 picks in the 3rd and 2 picks in the 4th. They have more pressing needs than, say it with me, folks, running back 3. Because whoever they bring in at running back is running back 3. And if you're bringing in running back 3, that running back needs to play special teams. So are you going to spend a 2nd or 3rd round pick on a running back that's, 1, not going to see the field unless there's injury, and 2, needs to be versatile enough and want to do the dirty work enough to play special teams? To me, that's no. To me, that's a 5th, 7th, or undrafted rookie free agent. And I said last podcast, if you didn't listen, I feel bad for Israel Abanikanda. 2023 draft pick out of Pitt of the Jets, on the roster, on the practice squad. Niners signed him off the practice squad end of last year, still had a year remaining. If he was a draft pick in April, people would be fawning all over him. They'd be breaking down tape on Twitter, showing you his explosive runs, good pass protection, how he can catch the ball, and how he could be the second coming of McCaffrey or battle Isaac Guerendo for running back 2 duties. If he was a draft pick, everybody would be moist in their pants, leaving a trail like a slug if Israel Abanikanda was a draft pick. But he's not, so no one cares about him at all. And he might be okay, might be a good back, might be crap back. I don't know. I haven't dove into his film enough. But if he was running back 3, be okay with that. We know they're bringing in running backs because you can't just have 4 running backs in training camp. They'll probably bring in another 3, whether they're all rookie undrafted free agents or 1 late draft pick or, 1 veteran that they sign later down the road. They're going to have 3 on the roster. Fullback is 1. It's Juice. We know that. He signed for 2 years. Moving on. Tight end on the roster, George Kittle. Luke Farrell signed from the Jaguars for 3 years. Then after that, Jake Tonjes, Braden Willis, and Mason Pline. The only two there that are guaranteed to make the roster are Kittle and Luke Farrell. They're going to carry 3 tight ends on the initial 53-man roster. That's what they've done the past several seasons. And I think it'll be a rookie draft pick that will be tight end 3. And it should be somebody, Kittle can obviously is, if not the top tight end in the league, top 2. Does it all. Block and a very good receiver. Luke Farrell, more of a blocker, but can give you a little bit in the receiving game. When a rookie is brought in, and they will draft a tight end, it should be someone who is more of a receiver than a blocker, but should be able to hold his own blocking and obviously improve both versions of that craft as time goes on. I see a tight end being picked anywhere from the 3rd to 5th round. Wide receivers: Aiyuk, Jennings, Pearsall, Demarcus Robinson from the Rams, then Cowing, Russell Gage, Isaiah Hodgins, Trent Taylor, and Tariq Owens. There's only 4 that are guaranteed to make the roster: Aiyuk, Jennings, Pearsall, and Robinson. They will keep 6 receivers at the most. And yes, Brandon Aiyuk will be one of the 6. I do not see the Niners spending a draft pick on a receiver. Why? Because even if Brandon Aiyuk is not available till beginning or mid-October, say he starts out on the PUP list, you still have Jennings, Pearsall, and Robinson. A draft pick would be no better than wide receiver 4. I don't care how highly drafted they are, and I can't imagine a receiver being drafted before the 4th round, honestly. And even then, I think it would be a waste of a pick. Again, because they will be buried on the depth chart. They will be buried per Kyle Shanahan not liking to play rookies. And receivers like a Jacob Cowing, the fastest receiver on the team, could not get out of the doghouse, was only the punt returner. You saw him play against the Chiefs, had a couple big plays, could not get on the field. That's why someone like a veteran, like a Russell Gage or an Isaiah Hodgins, has a really good chance of being wide receiver 5 or even 6, but someone that can play, especially someone like Hodgins, who's a little bit bigger, that can play special teams as well. Trent Taylor and Tariq Owens are destined for the practice squad. If Cowing is number 5 and Gage or Hodgins is number 6, I am totally fine with that. Actually, it could be Jennings 1, Pearsall 2, Robinson 3, then Cowing, Gage, and Hodgins through 6. When Aiyuk starts on the PUP list. Would I be shocked if they drafted a receiver? Of course not. Do I think it's a good use of an early round resource, meaning round 1, round 2, 2 picks in the 3rd, or maybe even the first pick of the 4th? No, because they have more important needs elsewhere where a draft pick could actually make a contribution year 1. You can take a receiver in the 5th or 7th and still think a year ahead, but this team also does need some help in 2025. Now let's go to offensive tackle. You have Trent Williams, Colton McKivitz, Austin Pleasance, Isaiah Alarcon, and Sebastian Gutierrez. Trent and Colton McKivitz are the only 2 that are guaranteed to make the roster. They're going to draft a rookie, folks. They are going to draft a rookie tackle, whether it's in the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd round. They will draft a rookie. If someone like Armand Membao out of Missouri or Will Campbell out of LSU falls to them at pick 11, I think that's the pick. This team does think a year out. Trent's only got 2 years left on his deal. Colton McKivitz only has 2025 left on his deal. And with Jalen Moore getting $15 million a year on the open market as a backup to the Niners, what do we think Colton McKivitz is going to get? He's playing on less than $3 million a year, folks. That's what his contract is. He very well may be gone. You have to think about succession planning for one of, if not both, tackles. They will draft a tackle. They're carrying 4 tackles. They did it the last couple of years. They like to have backups at both left tackle and right tackle. A rookie will be drafted, obviously will make the team, and one of Austin Pleasance, Isaac Alarcon, or Sebastian Gutierrez will back up the other tackle spot. Or someone, an undrafted rookie free agent if they look good, or some veteran down the road in the months to come. Center, they're only keeping 1. It's either going to be Jake Brendel or Matt Hennessy. The other center on the roster is Drake Nugent. He is undersized, practice squad at best, guys. I know, folks are down on Drake Nugent. We don't know a lot about Matt Hennessy out of Boston College a couple of years ago. Chris Forrester liked him coming out. That is going to be a battle. And if Brendel wins the center position, then Hennessy could find his way back onto the practice squad. If Hennessy wins the position, Brendel might be cut or traded. He could make his way to the practice squad as one of the 6 veterans, but I'm sure another team would pick him up. And that leaves us at guard, where they have Dominic Pooney, Ben Barch, Spencer Burford, Nick Zakiel, Zach Johnson, and Jalen McKenzie. They will be drafting a guard or someone with guard center flexibility, or a tackle that can play guard, that is more suited to guard in the pros. They're keeping 4 guards. Right now, it's Pooney, Barch, Burford, and Zakiel. When they bring a rookie in, Burford or Zakiel is gone. And that rookie may battle Ben Barch to be the starting left guard, but they're going to have 4 guards on the roster. That will be 9 offensive linemen in total, 4 tackles, 1 center, 4 guards, 9 offensive linemen. They could go as high as 10, but I don't think they need to, especially when they could probably keep 2 or 3 on the practice squad. Remember, Burford and Zakiel 2025 is their last year under contract. They are definitely going to be drafting a guard at some point. If they draft 3 offensive linemen, that would surprise me, but I don't see 2 rookies taking the place of Burford and Zakiel, or actually Barch too. Barch, Burford, and Zakiel are all free agents after this year. They could potentially keep one of those 3 at the end of 2025, but they need at least 1 rookie to step in to help replenish what's going on the line. And the Niners do not pay for offensive linemen other than Trent Williams. So let's go to defensive ends. Who they have on the roster: Nick Bosa, Yetur Gross-Matos, and Sam O. After that, Robert Beal, Alex Barrett, Jonathan Garvin, Taron Jackson, and Drake Jackson, still trying to come back from that knee injury. A rookie DN will be drafted. There's the possibility it could be 2, but they will be drafting a DN more than likely in the first 2 rounds, first 3 rounds at the absolute latest. The only 3 that are guaranteed in my mind to make the team are Bosa, Yetur Gross-Matos, and Sam O, which means if you bring in a rookie, that's DN 3 or 4. And then whether it's Alex Barrett or Jonathan Garvin or Taron Jackson or Drake Jackson, if he's healthy, would be your defensive end 5. They are keeping no more than 5 defensive ends on the 53-man roster. Again, Bosa, Yetur, and Sam O are the 3 that are going to make it. A rookie will be, again, the 4th DN on the roster, or maybe DN 3 or a starting, whatever, but will be a DN, which means they will have 1 spot open, probably for one of the other players that I listed here. But again, who knows what's going to happen between April and week 1 of the 2025 season. Defensive line, same thing. They're going to have 5, no more than 5 on the 53-man roster. The way that the D-line went last year, I want 10 D linemen, 5 DNs, 5 D tackles. Right now they have 4 on the roster: Evan Anderson, Jordan Elliott, Kevin Givens, and Kalia Davis. They will draft 2. They will draft 2 D tackles. They will bring in probably 2 D tackles as undrafted rookie free agents. They will bring in a veteran D tackle or 2 after the draft to fill out their 90-man camp roster. So I can see them having 8, 9, or 10 D tackles, probably 9 or 10 D tackles in camp. Only 5 is going to make it. They can draft 3. They could potentially draft 3. I don't see them doing it. I think 2 makes more sense. I think Evan Anderson and Jordan Elliott make the team. Then it's either Kevin Givens or Kalia Davis. Kevin Givens signed a 1-year deal. I'm not sure how much is guaranteed. Kalia Davis is on the last year of his rookie deal. So I could see Anderson is a 2nd-year player. Jordan Elliott, I think, is in his 6th year in the league. Kevin Givens, say around the same, and 2 rookies. So it gives you some sort of blend of youth and veteran experience. But I don't necessarily think any of the 4 that are currently on the roster are guaranteed to be there. No one is a lock. But the upper limit is 5 defensive tackles. So how they get there: 2 rookies and an undrafted rookie free agent, 2 rookies and a veteran that gets signed 3 months from now to bump off maybe 2 of these players. It's entirely possible. But in terms of the draft, 2 D tackles selected. Linebacker. Let's look at the roster: Fred Warner, D Winters, Luke Gifford, mainly special teams, but that does have starting experience from the Titans, and Tatum Bethune, Curtis Robinson, and Jalen Graham. They're going to draft a linebacker. Now, how high? This could be interesting. This could be as early as maybe the 2nd or 3rd round, if there's someone there that they think could potentially slide in as a starter next to Fred Warner. The only 3 that are guaranteed, I think, a spot on the team: Warner, Winters, and Luke Gifford. Otherwise, Bethune, Robinson, Graham. If a rookie gets drafted at all, that rookie's guaranteed to make the team. So there's 4 linebackers. They'll probably bring in 1 or 2 undrafted rookie free agent linebackers and probably a veteran somewhere in the months to come. 5 linebackers should make the team. They've often carried 6. I feel like that's too heavy considering some of the other positions. Maybe if they went only 2 quarterbacks, you could have a 6th linebacker. But 3 that are locks with Warner, Winters, and Gifford. The 4th being a rookie that's going to be drafted. And maybe the 5th linebacker is either Bethune, Robinson, or Graham, or someone to be named later. Good news is Graham, Robinson, or Bethune, they all could be on the practice squad if they don't make the roster. Cornerbacks. Who's on the roster? Diamador Lenore, Renardo Green, Trey Brown, Sierra Neal, Darrell Luter, Trey Tomlinson, Chase Lucas, and Trey Avery. They will draft a cornerback. Just a matter of when. Again, could be as early as the 3rd round. I could see maybe 4th or 5th. But the locks to make the team are only 4. Demo, Renardo Green, Trey Brown, and Sierra Neal. Sierra Neal was brought in a 2-year deal from the Dolphins, more so for special teams, but as a 4th, 5th, or 6th cornerback, that's fine. They will carry no more than 6 cornerbacks on the 53-man roster. So those are your 4 locks, which means a rookie that's drafted is cornerback number 5. And then whether it's Luter, Tomlinson, Chase Lucas, Trey Avery, again, I know I sound like a broken record, but an undrafted rookie free agent corner or a veteran corner that's added to the roster later, there's essentially 1 spot open once a rookie is drafted. Safety. Malik Mustafa, Jair Brown, Jason Pinnock signed from the Giants, George Odom, Richie Grant from the Falcons, Quindell Johnson, and Jalen Mahoney. I think the 3 locks to make the team are Malik Mustafa, Jair Brown, and Jason Pinnock, which means there is 1 spot open. If it's someone like Richie Grant, that means George Odom is gone. The fact that Sierra Neal plays special teams and is a secondary member could mean that George Odom is gone. Jalen Mahoney is a 2nd-year player out of Vanderbilt, got some playing time at the end of last season, was an undrafted rookie free agent, and Quindell Johnson was signed to a future contract from the Rams. Could they spend draft capital on a safety? Sure. I just don't think it's going to be early because Jair Brown's a 3rd-year player. Malik Mustafa is a 2nd-year player. Jason Pinnock's in his, I believe, 4th or 5th year. I think 5th year. I don't know how much youth they want on the back end. It's not out of the realm of possibility, but I don't think earlier than the 4th, maybe 5th, sounds about right for a safety. Should they draft one? I don't have them drafting a safety. The long snapper is John Weeks, formerly of the Texans. Punter Mitch Wisnowski and kicker Jake Moody. Both of those positions are not guaranteed, and I think the Niners bring in a rookie free agent to challenge both, and they should bring in a rookie free agent, if not also a veteran kicker to challenge Jake Moody's erraticness and probably shaken confidence, but also to challenge Mitch Wisnowski since he's had back issues, and I'm not sure he's as good a punter now as he was earlier on in his career. And if they could go cheaper with that and younger, even at something like punter, that is not a bad thing. So when you add up the rookies where I'm saying picks, tight end is 1, tackle is 2, guard is 3, D end is 4, D tackle, 2 of them is 5 and 6, linebacker is 7, cornerback is 8, and we'll just leave a wild card out there, either a safety or a running back, brings me to 8 or 9. Out of their 11 draft picks, the Niners, whether it's mainly spots I see available on the roster. And that's not to say that rookies can't beat out some of these other players, but folks, this is not an expansion team. This is not a team that is wildly bereft of talent. This is not a team where 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 rookies are going to make the squad. Anybody that you're listening to on social media telling you otherwise is flat out wrong. Can you imagine Saleh or Kyle, especially Kyle, wanting to deal with that many rookies on a team that is favored to win the NFC West, has literally the 2nd best win percentage total or win percentage odds in the conference? A team whose demise is greatly exaggerated when you still have Purdy and McCaffrey and Williams and Pooney and Kittle and Aiyuk and Pearsall and Jennings and Bosa and Warner and Demo and Greed and Mustafa. It's not Madden. The expectation should not be a Pro Bowler at every position. But if they're bringing in the rookies at the positions that I'm saying, there'd be 3 rookies on offense, a tight end, and 2 linemen. And again, there could be a running back drafted or maybe a receiver. Defense is where you might feel the rookies more, right? A D end, a 2D lineman, a linebacker, and a corner. Not to say that those 5 players, 5 rookies on defense would be starters, but I would see those 5 players as having a very good chance of getting meaningful, if not significant snaps and minutes in the 2025 or during the 2025 season. So that concludes the podcast for today and this week. Like always, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to make us part of your listening routine. If anything crazy happens between now and either mid to end of next week, Brock signing a contract or something crazy happening, I will definitely jump on for a podcast. But seeing as where we are, a little bit of a dead cycle as we start to slowly steamroll towards the draft end of April, our next podcast sometime between Wednesday and Friday of next week. Whatever you're doing between now and then, specifically March Madness, Elite 8 games and Final 4 the following weekend, stay happy, healthy, and safe. We will talk soon. Take care.